Hey everybody, so just a heads up, I probably won't get to do any coding in this video. There was just a few things I wanted to cover that kind of inspired me from watching yesterday's video. I normally watch the videos first I'll watch the video right before I upload it. That's why it's kind of nice to have short videos so that I don't have to spend 45 minutes watching a video. I do watch them in double speed. And then I'll watch the video that that I created. So there's a 3-day gap. So this video I'm videoing on recording on Sunday, and I believe it'll go up either Tuesday or Wednesday next week, right? So anyway, so there's a bit of a gap there. Um, then my next video that I'm uploading is going to be the one about voice API, and that one I only do on Saturday and Sunday. These I do every day on Saturday and Sunday. So today's Sunday, so I'll do one, and I will update it today. Anyways, but there was three things I wanted to cover based on that last one. First, it is it is not lost on me, and it's not something I was aware of before I started doing these videos. But I probably spend for every hour I get, I this the point of this application is to learn Three.js, right? That's the whole point. But I probably spend 9 out of 10 hours on Angular, and I don't think that this I and maybe like I was like, well, maybe it's a one time, but in my other video series it's turning out the exact same way. The whole point of that is to learn the voice API, and I'm spending 9 out of 10 hours on Angular. um, and the point is that you could blame that on Angular, but I don't think it's Angular's fault. I think it's because I think if we were building, we would not experience this if we were building vanilla JS. But the problem is on vanilla JS applications, my personal experience, having worked on literally dozens of enterprise vanilla JS applications back in the 90s and 2000s to 2010 and even up to 2015, was that once those applications get to about 10,000 lines of code, they become completely and totally unmaintainable. Even if you use like MVC, and you have, like, you look in there and everything's namespace, and you have model dot and view dot and whatever dot controller dot and all that, or and then I remember even for a little bit there was like this one called move, um, and they divided out events. They took the controller and they had whatever O is operators and events, and they divided up. And I mean, like 10, 12,000 lines of code, and it just collapses. It becomes completely and utterly unmaintainable. And so with Angular, and then the other thing is like I've built a lot of vanilla applications even for my own self. And once you get to a certain point, it's almost impossible unless you maintain it daily to be able to come up to speed again. It's not almost impossible, but it takes a long time to get back up to speed again, like months to get back to up speed again if you take like a week or two off from the code. And like while you're working on it, you can kind of keep all the concepts and understand where everything goes and stuff like that. But you lose that pretty quickly. There used to be a language that I used to work in the 90s called Perl, and it was just notorious for, like, people. I knew other Perl developers, and I remember this one guy was saying something that just resonated with me. He said, like, I could spend the whole morning, like from 8 a.m. to noon, and trying to put together and compose the most beautifully elegant, most understandable Perl code I could do. I could take a half-hour lunch, come back, and I can't. It can't make sense of it. Perl was insanely powerful. You could do incredible things with it, but man, was it very difficult to maintain. And JavaScript isn't that bad because, yeah, I think once you get to about 200 lines of Perl, you're gone. JavaScript, it's 10,000 lines, and you can do a hell of a lot in 10,000 lines, but you do get to the point where it would take other people. Like I can remember in like the early 2000s, uh, interviewing for places like Yahoo and places like that, um, where they would say, "Oh, it takes 2 years for someone to come up to speed on our framework," and all that. It was like somebody would literally come in, study for 2 solid years, and finally be able to actually have a good grip where they could be a really super productive member of the team. um, because it takes so long. I do not think it takes anywhere near that time to come up to speed in Angular. So that's behind me. Just the sum up on that is, yes, I'm spending 9 out of 10 hours on Angular versus whatever I'm trying to do, in this case 3JS, and I think that's normal, and I don't think that big corporations um, sort of account for that. Like they don't they when they say, oh, we're going to build an application, they say we're going to build they think that the people they bring in are going to be spending like 90% of their time on, like, let's say they're going to build a finance application. They think that their people are going to be spending 90% of their time on finance, but actually the people are going to be spending the developers probably in general are going to be spending 90% of their time on the web application structure itself, not on the domain that they're working on. And I don't think that they budget for that. I think they budget for the other way around, and they can't understand why the application's moving so slowly, and that is probably the reason. And then the thing is the pressure to move the domain part forward is incredible. It's immense. So that's why nobody keeps their application up to speed. So now you have every 6 months Angular does an upgrade, and after 4 years you're 4 versions behind because they're trying to just get domain stuff done, and and they're trying to kind of do all the Angular stuff behind the scenes, because Angular was supposed to take care of all that stuff for them. Okay, so yesterday I had this thing where I had mat error, right? And I was using the mat error, and then I tags, and then I created a new component, and then it said like this, and I wanted to have the mat error inside. This is number two, this second thing, inside this app validation error message. And I made the comment like, in my world, if the world exists the way I want it to exist, I could put this mat error in there, and I don't have to copy and paste all of this. I can just copy and paste this. But the Angular team has some sort of thing where they material probably in their styles and stuff, where all the styles break if you put it in there. So basically what was happening is the like right now, if I go in and I make this happen, make this error show up, right? This nice big red line shows up under there. But when I had the mat error in there, the red line showed up under there, and it was just like, yeah, that's just not going to fly. And the reality is while I do want this in there, I can't have it in there because I don't want to swim upstream against the material team. And I could make that work by manipulating, like kind of figuring out how this is working and then doing manipulations to the CSS. And the Angular material team has made reasonable ways to update the CSS. But the thing is anytime you start to mess around with that CSS, you probably poison your pill. You poison pilled your application for being able to do upgrades, because when you try to, at some point when you try to upgrade Angular material, they will likely change the underlying structure, markup structure of the application, and then you won't be able to upgrade. And that's just the reality that we're in. And so what happens a lot of times is, like, if you're like a very senior developer, and you're very focused like on the front end, and many times somebody else has already tried to do what's been assigned to you, right? So they assign, hey, I want this, and now it's broken. And so now this person, who many times might even be hierarchically above you in the organization, has gotten in their head that they want like this tag to be inside of here. And then like when you go and you do your PR and you have it working perfectly and you go, hey, I'd like approval, they're like, oh shit, how did he do that? And then they go look, and it pisses them off, right? They're like, no, I wanted that in there. And they're just emotionally vested in the fact that they want the mat error to be inside of there. And the reality is it would be stupid to do that. And since they're hierarchically above you, it's not appropriate for you to say, hey, I would do that, but that's stupid. Like, you just aren't supposed to do stuff like that. That's just the way our world works. We have these like social hierarchies, and you have to respect them. But And so then you can make it work and all that, but the problems come in the future. And of course, since things travel downhill, you end up getting blamed for basically doing exactly what the person above you hierarchically forced you to do. And that's just a kind of a reality we live with. And, you know, and sometimes you just can't work around that. Like, that's just, the social demands are more important for your short term financial subsistence for you to be able to live, uh, that you kind of just have to do and make whatever that person above you who is an ignorant fool wants you to do. I mean, that's just the reality, and that's probably for someone like if you're a software developer and you have sort of a mindset of a software developer, you don't really like thinking in those terms of, hey, you got to do what you got to do. That's just not we most people want it to be done correctly and in a way that's sustainable. But, sometimes you can't. And that is probably the crux of what the most difficult part of being a software developer is. Trying to figure out how to navigate that. If you can communicate in a really, really effective way, like, hey, I understand that, you want those in there, and I think you're right. I think that makes total sense, and it would be way better. It is a bad idea to do that, but the problem is a lot of times the person who is dealing with that, they're dealing with this is just one of a million things that they're dealing with, and they just don't want to think through that because it's painful. Like, it is just actually physically painful in your brain to restructure those sorts of things once you have an idea in your head, and then you have to go restructure it. And if you've decided, yeah, so sometimes it's just, that's, like I said, that is probably the number one most difficult thing of being a enterprise developer, is dealing with the sort of mental ideas that people have. Okay, so now the third thing, and a much more positive sort of thing, is it is very, very easy to miss opportunities to learn things. And I was watching my video yesterday, and I was reading the error that was coming because, like, here, I can make the error happen. Div, right? So I had this error, and it was just like node matches the mat error slot of map form fill component, but will not be projected into a specific slot because the surrounding @if has more than one node at its root. To project the node in the right slot, you can blah 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 blah, and give some suggestions of. But while I was reading that, I had a pretty good idea of everything, every word up there except for slot. And it's like, what the WTF is a slot? Who knows what a slot is, and all that. And that was a shining opportunity to learn something that I just let slip. And so, and nowadays, maybe I let it slip because it used to be so hard to that, like, you would just start reading articles from people doing searches on the web, and then people who do not understand it and they're just making shit up. I'm going to try to cut back on the cursing. They're just making stuff up, and they're just inventing concepts in their head, and a lot of times you're worse off after you get done reading. But we have ChatGPT now. So I said, in Angular, what is a slot? And it says, in Angular, a slot typically refers to a placeholder or a designated space with a component that allows content to be injected from the outside. So basically, somehow, this is outside. We're taking content and we're injecting it from the outside. It doesn't feel like outside to me. It feels like inside. But apparently, if you break down, you start looking at the structures that Angular material creates for this stuff, it is outside. Like I said, it's outside from their perspective. For me, it's inside. It's right here. It's inside. But so there is an outside. Once you dig in, it's outside. So this concept is the concept is similar to slots in web components, which I don't understand why. Like, that's a terrible thing to do in general. Like, and this is, just Chat GPT going out and reading other things. Like, this is useless. Telling me that a slot is like a slot, useless. there's no value to that thing. So it is important when you're reading stuff to sort of not just absorb whatever you read. Like, you need to think about it critically, where specific content can be placed within a particular region of a component. Um, so I guess, yeah. So this is useful. So we could take, apparently they have the concept where there's a specific content and they want to place it in a region, but that isn't us. We actually want it right here. So, but, we have to imagine. In Angular, slots are often implemented using ng content with selectors to define different sections. Here's a breakdown of how slots work. Basic slotting with ng content. So probably in there's an ng content that we're trying to project our data into, and that is going to be down here. But apparently if we have another div in there, then maybe they have it hard coded to look at the first div. Don't know. Let's see. Yes, it still complains, but maybe it would have worked. I don't know. Let's see. Projecting allow you to pass content from the parent component into a child component's template. So then they kind of show this idea where we have this ng content, and we have another ng content, and we have another ng content. In this example, the header targets elements serving as a slot for the header. So this is the slot. This is the header slot. So I guess what they're saying is there's a very strong possibility that there's some sort of ng content in there, and this ng content gets screwed up if we have anything else in here. Or maybe it doesn't always get screwed up, but there are some scenarios in which it will get screwed up. So using slots in a parent component. See, div header, div footer. Okay, so the advantages, so they say it's flexible, making it easier to create flexible and reusable layouts. Content keeps all of the child component logic isolated from the specific content, which is exactly what we're trying to do. Like, we were trying to do that, but we wanted to use their thing, but their thing apparently doesn't allow it to be in another thing. So it would have been nice if we'd been able to add like an ID or something, or some other system, so that we could tell it this is where the mat error is defined or whatever. Dynamic content injection. So this is actually what we want, but it looks like they already took that, and that the way Angular is set up. So that, I don't know. I don't really understand slots yet still, but I do think I'm closer to understanding slots. This is not the first time I've heard the word slots. My general instinct is to sort of protect my brain when sort of alien concepts kind of come in and they want to, and they're sort of exotic and I can't really understand what they do. I kind of have my first instinct to sort of lock down and kind of protect myself from that. But I think that this is an example of a concept that I probably isn't going away. This slot concept, especially when you read that it's also a concept in web components. So it looks like we need to understand, like, we need to start becoming very familiar with the word slot. Much like how I was talking about, like the word token. Token used to be something that I would sort of isolate myself from. Obviously, you can't just let any old concept into your head and start, because you can get very, very confused and things can get out of control. But it looks like it's time to start understanding slots, and hopefully the next time I come across the word slot, I don't just lock down again, that I actually have a better understanding, and maybe my next experience might sort of cement in the concept. So anyways, I think then that's really all that should be in this video. Yeah, we're already at 19 minutes. I do think the next video is, I can't even remember what we were going to work on next. So we have this working the way we want it to work. I think the whole system is in place now. Okay, so I think, yeah, the next video we need to sort of just go over like the the system as is, like see if it makes sense. I have a bit of a suspicion that the service, the top level validation util service, like uh, probably I need to rename that dictionary to validation error things dictionary, because it's like this validation dictionary path, and then it looks for the validation dictionary type. Let's see. So what this gives you is the token. So probably I need to rename this to token validation token dictionary. Sort of make it a little bit more. Make it a little. So we have a couple of linguistic variations here that we kind of need to unite. But it's not as bad as I was thinking. I thought we had a major problem. Um, yeah, I probably should call this error text. So that we do have a couple small tweaks so that things read a little bit better. And then once that's done, we need to work on some sort of icon or something that happens. Like I want to make it to where if you type in the A goes away, and then you get a little icon that lets you know that the last key entered was invalid or something like that. And then like, so if you were to type A, that little icon would show up, and then it goes away, and that's what you would get with your little token. Maybe an icon up here, or I don't know, maybe a little maybe I could put an icon in there somehow, and then um, when you click on it, when you hover or click on it, you get a little indicator telling you what the error was. And then if you typed in one, it just goes away, because it's just going to be based on whatever the last entry was. Or if you leave, it goes away. If you leave and it's valid, you haven't left in an invalid state. So that is that. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.